if you want to come closer, you're very welcome. But really feel just comfortable, sit comfortably, engage with us in this conversation. And you know, a panel discussion sounds to me a bit scary, a bit formal. And I think what we would like to create here is a conversation. We would like to ask questions. We would like to raise topics that are burning topics in our work. Maybe they will echo with you, I hope so. And we will try to do our best to share some thoughts, to share our challenges at work, in the memory work that is being done locally in each place. And we will be confused together, which I think is a good starting point for a lot of things. And mostly we will try to keep it, I think, not like an academic discussion, I would say. So we will try to have more of a conversation. So for a start, my name is Schwartz, like I said before. I'm a part of the Grodzka Gate and Theatre team. I run the education department here, and I'm also a curator of contemporary art. So that's a little bit about me. I've been involved in work with memory in this place for the past 12 years. In educational projects, international seminars, working with school children both from Israel and from Poland. And the artistic work is another part of my life. And I would like to introduce our panelists, our members. So we have with us Adam Sitarek, who is from Łódź University and is the head of the Philip Friedman Center for Jewish Studies. In a moment, you will tell more about your work and yourself, but I will just introduce quickly. We have Ivana Godulová from Bratislava, from EDEQEC NGO. And we have Anna Lenchovska from Tolerspace in Kyiv. So my first request to all of you is take, 5 minutes or more if you need. Tell us about who you are, which organization you work with, and what is the current project which keeps you busy these days. So we can all have some context for this conversation. There is another microphone here. You are welcome to use it.
Okay, so I will start. Hello again, my name is Adam. As Tal already said, I'm a historian. I work in the Center for Jewish Studies, Philip Friedman Center for Jewish Studies at the Łódź University. But I'm not only a researcher, we together with my team, colleagues from my center, doing a lot of different things connected to Jewish history, especially to the Holocaust history, Holocaust studies. We have our association connected closely to our center. And in our center, first, we are doing a lot of projects, too many projects to be honest, connected to the history of Łódź Ghetto and the history of small communities from Łódź region. The biggest project which is about to finish, that's why I have to leave tomorrow. It's Lexicon of the Łódź Ghetto. We create kind of encyclopedia of Łódź Ghetto with about 1,500 entries, which fills all the field, I think almost all field, connected to the history of Łódź Ghetto, different categories of entries, people, biographies, objects, events, places, and so on. Very, very busy, 6 years old lasting project. The second project, which is supported by FOZ, is a project called Topography of Memory. We found our friend, to be honest, former journalist Paweł Spodenkiewicz, gave us a collection of unique recordings, testimonies recorded by him in 1992, 93, in Israel, in Europe, in Poland, testimonies of survivors from the Łódź Ghetto, about 60 tapes. So we already digitalized it, create some kind of transcription, and we will now creating online map of the memory of Jewish Łódź with a hotspots, kind of hubs of memory. And that's one part of the project. But the second very important part of this project is that we ask our friend, he's a professor of Academy of Fine Arts in Łódź, to take his students to create something in those spots in the city structure. So in October, the students, 10 students from Academy of Fine Arts will prepare something, I don't know what, that's their decision. Some kind of artistic intervention in 10 different or even maybe more points inside the city. That could be sound presentation, that could be sculpture, that could be mural, painting on the wall, we don't know. So yeah, and the last part of this project is the workshop, kind of academic workshop for students, for PhD students about topography of memory, because we are really involved in spatial turn in Holocaust studies. We just became member of ERI, European Holocaust Research Infrastructure, as a center, and we are responsible for geospatial repository there. The second part of my life is NGO activist. So in our association, we are doing different projects connected with local communities from small cities. For example, we founded memorial plaques and the markings of a ghetto in Pabianice, city near Łódź. It will be open next to 3 months. But also we create kind of inventory of forgotten Jewish cemeteries in city of Widawa and city of Bełchatów. Totally destroyed cemeteries with, I don't know, fragments of Macevot there. So we took a picture of every fragment because Macevot from Bełchatów were digged out from the road during the construction of a bridge. So we pay for transport from Bełchatów to Łódź because it was somewhere in a private property. So we brought them the fragments of Łódź. We took a picture of every fragment from that size of fragment to the full Macewa. So about 3,000 fragments. So we measure it, photograph it, and describe it with a cooperation of our friends from History of Art department and students from Archaeology department and History of Art department. So we create that kind of inventory reports from Widawa and from Bełchatów. Maybe we'll create another from Brzeziny, we'll see. We have some human problems with, in our association, so we'll see. That's the problem, we'll be talking about the problems. Yes. Yeah, and maybe for now that's it. Your turn. Okay. You have no choice.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's on. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. So my name is Ivana Godulová. I'm from little organization Education for Equality and Ecology, but we call it EDEQEC, from Bratislava. And in general, we focus mostly on human rights education, and then we are trying to incorporate feminist issues, environmental issues. Our usually workshops are incorporate experiential learning. We are based in Slovakia. We work throughout Slovakia in different cities or villages, even, and we also work internationally due to our connections. So we had some projects with Ukraine and with Bosnia and Herzegovina NGOs there.
Could you say a little bit about the current project that keeps you busy?
So we have the project Forgotten Her Stories, various aspects of care during the Slovak state, and it's supported by EVZ, IVZ. And in this project we focus on on women who were active in resistance movement in Slovakia. So basically we research some stories. We have 10 stories of women, 10 to 12 stories of women. And now we work on a toolkit through which we present these stories. We create activities which are outdoor activities. Then we have activities like art activities and activities that like incorporate digital technologies. So in these 3 ways. And we will share this toolkit with interested people, teachers, and NGO workers, basically, with whom we will cooperate further. Then we do also public events. For example, recently we had Walk in Bratislava. We had Walk in Bratislava, in which we introduced life stories of few women who were somehow connected to Bratislava and concrete places there.
Hello, my name is Anna Lenchovska and I'm coming from Kyiv, and I'm leading NGO called Kyiv Educational Center Tolerspace. And we work with teenagers, young people, and those adults who work with teenagers. So we've been working for 12 years with the issues of historical memory and diversity and human rights education. But for the last 3 years, we also have added trauma-sensitive education to our list. And our current project with FOZ Foundation is called Project Schools on Research of the topic of forced labor during National Socialism, in Gulag, and in nowadays. In this project, we like to use peer-to-peer approach in our work. So when we work with teenagers, we like that they become peer guides for other teenagers. And also we create cooperation, horizontal cooperation between teachers and teenagers. So to each of our project school, we invite a team of 1 teacher who was already interested in the work with historical memory, in the work with sources, maybe got training in Holocaust education or education about totalitarianism. And this teacher brings his or her 2 students. And usually we like to work with teachers from different regions of Ukraine. You know, Ukraine is a big country. And especially now, this social cohesion and exchange between people from different regions is highly important. But as I say, that like every time we have a new level, maybe like a computer game, or I don't know, with which we are trying to cope. So some of our teachers are from the east or from the south, and they cannot work in their schools in the buildings anymore because some of the buildings doesn't exist, some of the cities doesn't exist, or some of the places are under occupation. So some of the teachers flee to other regions. And in our project, we try to bring them like both online, of course, like via webinars, we all know since COVID. But in this project, we try to bring offline a teacher and his or her students together with teachers from other parts. And we have 15 participants at each project school, and it's amazing how students and teacher from Kramatorsk, when a teacher came from France, where she is in evacuation now with her family, she reunited with her students whom she hasn't seen for 4 years. And those kids are learning only online, and they lost like soft skills completely. So you see, like gradually they renew it, and that's really a big pleasure. And of course, in this project we are dealing with a hard historical topic, which is also not only historical, which also applies for today. And my colleague Ulyana Ustinova, she was a trained trainer in the topic of prevention of forced labor and trade of humans by International Organization of Migration. So we have the whole day devoted to those issues. And during our school, we have different interactive activities where our participants work with the sources, with video testimonies, or with photographs, or with cases, and we combine, so we always work interactively. And also we would like them to research locally either nowadays history of forced labor or a history of the past. And so our graduates have already prepared 10 small projects in their locations. And in Lenchovska, for example, they found Ostarbeiters, so forced labor sent from Ukraine to Nazi Germany. And they found their names and documents in Arlington archive, and they prepared a poster for the exhibition in local history museum. So that's what we try to connect. Local museum, which are like very often like such rigid structures where young people don't like to go very much. But when young people do something themselves, they want it to be presented in some like important place, so they feel also their seriosity. So that's how we try to work with them. So some of them, they do their projects offline with museums or just in their location, and some who only teach online, then they do online projects. So that's currently what I'm doing.
Thank you all. Maybe I'll take this one, sorry, because this one. So we start with a big question, right? Memory works. We try to be funny here and like give this dual meaning. Memory works, but does it work? This is what we are trying to ask here. Obviously, well, one possible answer can be yes, because this is a room full of people who are doing memory work. But we want to dig deeper and look at our challenges, at our successes, at what the current very turbulent situation in the world brings at our door when we are looking at memory work. Our starting point and our focal point is that everyone here are dealing with the memory of the victims and crimes of National Socialists, and this is a central focal point. But as you heard, each one of the people here is working with it in a very different way. So we have like very different approaches here. On one hand, academia, but also activism in small towns, but also in big cities. So we have a lot of different feminism and ecology connected with stories of women who were women in resistance during World War II in Slovakia. And generally, the question of trauma-sensitive approach and dealing with the memory of the Holocaust in Ukraine today under war. So we have, I think, we can have a 5 hours discussion with all these interesting topics here. But perhaps I was a bit conflicted if to start with it, but I think I would like to deep dive into what I think occupies us all, and what are the challenges that you are dealing, what is the biggest challenge that you see today in your work? What are the walls you are hitting on your everyday work? And maybe we'll start with that, and then we will, go through that to a few more topics and questions. So where do you hit the wall?
Everywhere.
Everywhere. Well, you want to go ahead.
Okay, that's a big question, really. I should start from the problems with, how to say that, to be fair. With community, maybe. This is the first problem, which is the biggest problem in my work as an activist. Problem with lack of understanding from the citizens, from descendants of bystanders of Holocaust, neighbors, dealing with a very tough, hard history of a destruction of Jewish community from small cities. The great example is how people from small cities, from villages react when we are doing something, just, I don't know, just going or walking around, taking pictures at the former cemetery area. So they are thinking that we are stealing something. They are thinking that we are Jews coming to take something back, the property, of course. So that's the the lack of understanding, I think. And also, that's, you know, we talked that on Zoom before our seminar, the contrast between how people react in a metropolis, big city, and how people react in small villages, small cities, small communities. Totally different reactions. People from big cities are much more open, but the problems are different. Mostly problem of organization with the sources, and problem to get to the audience. How to get to the audience, people, students, pupils from school, students from school, university students, with our projects, with our knowledge, when they are totally over-informed, attacked from different sides via social media and so on. And I won't open the Pandora box about the last biggest problem, but maybe later.
Yeah, we'll keep some problems for later.
Okay, so as we deal with a little bit, or with this similar topic from a different perspective, we are trying to research like women's lives in the past. And what we still have is the lack of resources. Already there are really many, for example, videos of Holocaust survivors and so on, who are also women. So there are some these sources, but we focus on women who were involved in resistance. And in that case, also in our case, we are trying to focus on diversity. So we are trying to really include diverse women. For example, also Roma women, or even we're trying to include queer women in Slovakia. And this is very difficult, even like to find those resources, like women, some memories of women from the past. And also in Slovakia, after the Second World War, we had socialism, and the memories which there are, sometimes they are also like a bit shaped by ideology. So it's also difficult to, yeah. So we basically would welcome even more resources. And that's what we work on, to have some resources that people can use, even teachers can use.
But let me take the last thing that you said. You said in Slovakia after the war there was socialism, and that poses some problems. So we are talking about the change of narratives, or how do you see it? I mean,
yeah. So I will take example. In the Second World War, we had one resistance group which was led by a woman. But after the Second World War, actually, she was not mentioned anywhere, and she was even in the prison, put into prison. And it was because she was not in line with the regime. So only after, in the 90s we could research like this woman was present. She was important for the resistance. So that's like some voices are silenced, some voices are even not collected, and also many voices were lost because they died. So.
Of course, the biggest challenge is Russian war. Russia who started war in Ukraine, and that's speaking about human losses and houses losses and cultural losses and educational losses of those students who are trying to catch up this education either online or combining two schools or skipping Ukrainian school, and many problems tied with it. But it's also, of course, not only a war on territories or resources, but it's a war about identity. And in our topic, researching the history of 20th century, and researching the history of National Socialism, Russia vastly uses lexics of National Socialists and blaming the other party of being Nazi. So I think that now, with all of these losses and challenges and troubles we have now because of the war, but also we have maybe it can be seen as a gain or as a development but we definitely have a development of the interest to all of these hard topics from the past. Young people are interested in the history of Ukraine, in the history of World War II, in international humanitarian law, in those differences of limitations of human rights, whether they can be limited because of the war or not. And also, like, we're surprised when how the human rights actually appeared and why they appeared, and what's now happening with violating them on a daily basis. And I think that's one of our biggest maybe identity challenges, that Ukrainian identity is now on the risk, and we are defending it, and also we are defending democratic values and the values of human rights. The challenge is other values, this mono-narrative, and the narrative of those that if I'm stronger, then I win, and I decide how it would be. I think that's a general now kind of narrative of games of powers in the world. But speaking more groundly on everyday challenges with projects that we have, also caused by war, it's of course black and white thinking. Because to survive in the war, you need to have clear understanding of who your enemy is and who you are. And also who you are together with, like, people of citizens and all of this. But also to be a human, you need diversity, and you need a freedom to discuss sensitive topics, and you need a certain also freedom in these limits. And here maybe I will quote my colleague Maxim Butkevich, who was just half a year ago released from Russian prison, where he was kept as a political prisoner of war. And he's saying that when he was released and came back to Kyiv, so he has seen, and he was gladly surprised that we still have this freedom of discussing really hard topics. And we may say that we have a lot of, like, quarrels in the society, and sometimes I'm really desperate about it, that we will, I don't know, kill each other beforehand on different issues, but that's also this freedom and, yeah, energy in it.
I think when we spoke before, what I found very interesting is that kids in Ukraine today experiencing war, living under war situation, are still very interested in, you know, a war that happened 8 years ago. And I am curious, like, how do you see that, and why does that happen? Why, you know, I would intuitively I would think, perhaps, you know, they're so busy with the war they have today, why would they be interested in another war that happened so many years ago? In their perspective, it was like, you know, in the dinosaurs' time, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's completely true. Like, yeah, even if teacher says that he was teaching under Perestroika and Gorbachev, for them it's the same, like, I don't know, the Tsar or other periods and dinosaurs. Yeah, but why they become interested? I think it's good about environments that we live now, and if we are trying to use the benefits of it, it's social media. So we came also with a supported project to TikTok, because teenagers were in TikTok, and we said to ourselves, okay, maybe we don't like it, it's Chinese and all of this crazy shit, but we need to be where they are. So we came there with videos created by teenagers, and we were surprised how really those hard topics were interesting to them. And we have thousands of views, and also discussions under it. So partially it's because, yeah, of course there are good teachers, but school textbooks still are overloaded. The program is overloaded. Our program of history, like, I don't know, we study everything from from beginning to end. And in the school, students don't say that history is their favorite subject, unfortunately. But in social media, that's not only us, but also YouTube and Instagram projects on history. Now they have a huge rise. And that you can see by the numbers of subscribers. because they're trying to find, they have these answers and they try, the questions and they try to find the answers. Of course, there is also a danger in the social media because it's short and also it creates bulbs and it's really easy to manipulate. But yeah, I think it's a risk, but it is not the reason for NGOs not to be there. And also one of our students, so we asked him, if not this seminar, would you be interested in this topic of forced labor during Nazi times? He said, no. Yeah, so yeah, such events also by NGOs and interactive things, they help. Yeah, that's different from what they have at school, I think.
Just one comment and question, because working with my students from Ukraine, because we have a lot of students from Ukraine in our university, and I think it could be also the kind of psychological thing. For example, they can feel more realistic. They can imagine how the victims felt during the war, for example, because there are victims now, different war. And they could realize and recognize the patterns of war crimes, genocide, and different, exclusion, deportation, and different things. And did you find it in your work?
Yeah. Yes. So they also the topic that we are trying to give them is life under occupation. So especially, we are interested in this how it was for civilians during the occupation. And of course, it's the most important topic for them because they are themselves civilians during the war, and some of their friends are in occupation, some of them have been under occupation. And also, I think that speaking also about different generations, of course, during the 20th century, there had been a lot of breaks in those connections between generations. But now this generation of teenagers, they are trying to reconnect, and they Google very good, and then they come at home and they say, oh, like I have a question. And that is something that they can base on, because if they are alive, that means that someone survived of the ancestors during the Second World War, and those histories of survival and those histories of maybe resistance or like just survival during the war, they also help. So, and that's also what we try to base on.
And I just have one remark, like from perspective of Slovakia, but also I think perhaps yours, like that war has never been closer in the recent years. Now I read a historical book about Slovakia, about bombardment, let's say, of one city, and exactly that is happening just a few kilometers.
Today in Kyiv at night. Yeah.
The same, like at that time, the shelters, underground shelters, were not prepared. The same was in Ukraine. So it's, I mean, it happened 80 years ago, but from some point of view, it has never, like from my perspective or Slovak perspective, it has never been closer, actually.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel the same, Adam?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You're absolutely right with that. The war is so close, and we can even hear sometimes the war in Eastern Poland. So it's not a imagination. It's not a science fiction. It's happening. People are dying. People are hiding, and preparing the strategy of survival, like during the war, during the Holocaust. So you're absolutely right.
Could it be also something that, distort history in a way? I can give an example. I'm from Israel. At the 7th of October, Hamas attacked Israel. The biggest massacre, the biggest pogrom that happened since the Holocaust, actually. And one challenge that we see is the separating, this kind of mixture of narratives, that what we've been through now is a Holocaust, for example, and mixing those things, historical events that happened with current events. Obviously, we can see similarities in certain things, but is that something that you experience also in your work, in this current, the war in Ukraine is much closer to all of you than obviously the Middle East. But I'm curious, how do you experience that? Because we see that sometimes with young people they tend to mix the things.
Yes, and I also told about words and the words and names, like how do you name things? They are important also, what you have said, because people can name things from what they know, from their knowledge, and when something new or terrible occurs, there is not yet a new word for this, or might be, or they're using those descriptions and words that they knew before and trying to compare it, which of course also creates like chaos and sometimes diminishes current issues or diminishes past issues. And that's why we are in our organization, so we cooperate with Ukrainian Center for Holocaust Studies very closely. And we conduct such roundtables and webinars where we try to speak about those lexicon like from the past and trying to think out of a new lexic of what's going on now here in Ukraine. And I know that the lawyers are also working on it. Yeah, so I think that every time we need to invent probably some new framings for what's going on now. And something we can compare, but something we cannot compare, because the context is very important.
I mean, comparing is not a bad thing by itself. It shows us what is similar and what is different. So, I mean, I think everything can be compared. We need to compare things. But then the question is, what are the differences? What are the similarities? And can we actually...
That could be very good inspiration for different NGOs, activists to work with problems of memory, those semantic problems, how to name different things, different events. But what about what you said already? The October 7 pogrom is creates another different threat for our work, the huge wave of anti-Semitism. So, which is the biggest wave of anti-Semitism since my 15 year career. So people attacking, I don't know, researchers, students from Jewish studies departments because they are, I don't know, learning or teaching Jewish history. It doesn't matter, it's connected with Israel and Palestine. The biggest wave of devastation of memorial sites in Łódź was just after October 7, not 10 years ago during peace government, you know, far right-wing party. Every day, to be honest, just last weekend, I found another hard-to-remove stickers on the Holocaust memorial site in Old City Park in Łódź, in which I was involved to create the information plaques about the ghetto, about the Jewish district in pre-war Łódź. And they put stickers every week, city removing it, and they put again huge stickers. So that kind of this kind of problem with anti-Semitism is the biggest threat and problem now for us. That's the Pandora box.
Do you feel it also in the? You mentioned the local communities, the small communities that you work in. So what you mentioned now is the big cities, which we have like university and students, where I think, you know, there's more awareness of what is going on, and there's also much more sense of activism. But when you go to small communities, do you also feel a change after October 7th?
I'm not sure, to be honest. A little bit, maybe, because small communities is a different, very. From one side, of course, interesting for psychiatrists, for example. Mixture of anti-Judaism from Catholic Church, anti-Semitism from 19th century, or pre-war anti-Semitism from Stronnictwo Narodowe, and some anti-Israelism, anti-Zionism, they call it, from social media. So it is, but I didn't found it in small communities yet, in Bełchatów or in Widawa. Of course, in my city of Łódź, we had students shouting "Hańba" in lecture about settlement, colonialism, and different things, and yeah, but not maybe in those NGOs activity.
Do you feel a change in your work after October 7th? If the topic has raised, I don't know, is that something that affects your work? Because you're also dealing with, of course, women in resistance, but some of them are Jewish women, Jewish stories, well, crimes of Nazism. Is that something that raises a problem also for you?
Like for us, or for me personally, it did not change like through the work. One thing is that we focus on something that historians call micro-histories, let's say, like that individual lives and what was happening in individual lives, what were decisions, and so on. But in general, yeah, I mean, in the public, it changed everything, actually. Like there are so many groups, also like the growth of anti-Semitism, but then also like taboos, like what we don't talk about, and so on, like also about people in Gaza and so on. So the public discourse is very complicated, and there are, I think, still many taboos.
And do you think those taboos should be broken for this kind of work?
Oh, I'm not the best one to answer such. So, yeah. Actually, we will see. Now we will be working with teachers who are from different cities, and I'm even curious how much this topic will be raised by them, and we will see. Like we will then reflect it. So I'm basically also curious about this. Yeah, but I'm not. I cannot solve this.
Yeah, so in Ukraine, I will say probably from the organizations and from myself about the challenges of 7th October. So as for our organization or our colleagues who work in the same field, so, you know, this threat by Russia is such huge that 7th October events were not affecting our work only. We were worrying about our friends and colleagues in Israel, how are they, and trying also to help them. I know that our colleagues from Ukraine Center for Holocaust Studies just last month conducted their usual project with Yad Vashem. It was online, but it was okay. So in Ukraine, in general, public discourse, still we have other issues, you know, with Israel, like whose pain is bigger and who recognizes what, all of this old place, and that's still, yeah, that's on the table, and yeah, whether Israel will recognize Great Famine or not recognize, and all of these things are on top. Yes, but also since full scale, many Israeli organizations also are trying to help Ukrainians, and there is the Israeli Coalition on Trauma, which trained many teachers and psychologists, and I was trained in their programs. So that's a real help, and we are learning how to live and how to have constant life during the war. That's very important. And
war-life balance, as we call it.
Yeah, war-life balance. Yes, that's true. And also Hibuki project. I don't know whether you know about it. That's like a toy for kids, a psychotherapeutical toy that helps a kid to survive and also continue learning and continue be a kid. That's what is now in Ukrainian public discourse. But speaking about me also as a leader of NGO. In international context, I'm just back from the Netherlands. So it is tough, yeah, to talk about Israel now with colleagues from other countries. And if we apply for a joint project, it's also high risk if we do it with our Dutch or German partners, so that people don't show up, or we also get this anti-Israeli very heavy rhetorics, and not only rhetorics. That's a huge risk which I'm unfortunately seeing now, yeah, in terms of international context.
And you ask, how can we break that? Our example, next week we have a visit of students from Tel Hai College from northern Israel. So that's our academic answer, how can we do it? So we asked our friend Jaromir Freisager from Tel High College to visit Łódź with his students. They are studying Yiddish literature, so totally unconnected with the Holocaust, with contemporary history. But Jaron's home was destroyed by a Hezbollah rocket, so a few months ago. So we asked them to visit Łódź, and to be honest, to organize it, of course we planned together meeting with our students from philology department, English studies department, but organize an official meeting at the university now of delegation of Israeli students, it's quite hard. But we are trying to do our best to convince our authorities, the president of university, to support us, and we'll see. But that's my answer, how to do it.
I would like to go back to Ukraine in that context. I mean, maybe October 7th is not something that affects the work immediately, but you mentioned before a little bit about the politicization of the history, right? Used by Russia, like who is Nazi, who is fascist, who is a hero, yeah? Who is the victim, who is the victimizer? I think, well, that also can be discussed in the context of Israel, right? This is also a question that a victim and a victimizer, they can be the same at once, and we are experiencing that today in the world in many places. But in the context of history in Ukraine, it's a very complex history when we talk about World War II. Ukraine as an occupied country on one hand. On the other hand, we have stories of collaborators. We have everything, basically. We know that, well, in a different perspective, also in Poland we have that. In Slovakia we have that. I mean, that is a very complex history. And you mentioned also that under war, psychologically, people tend to divide the world to black and white. You know, there's only black and white, it's missing shades. And we know that this is one of the things that hurts us the most when we try to do our historical work. Because if we look at history and we look at only black and white at it, then we're definitely missing a lot. We're definitely maybe doing something like distorting the history in a sense. So how do you deal with all those layers of complexity? Because I think there are a lot of them when you look at history, when you look at Ukraine today, you know, Bandera as a national hero on one hand, and then on the other hand, you know, a perpetrator. So how do you deal with that, with this complexity?
Maybe I'll start quoting Tatiana Pastushenko, doctor of history, a professor, and she was giving also a webinar on research of forced labor during National Socialism, and she said, I like this very much, her frame, that we have at least 5 versions of World War II history in Ukraine. So one is like Soviet or Russian version, Great Victory, Great Patriotic War, with all of these wordings and framings. Second, Jewish version, Holocaust, and Ukrainians or other people as collaborators. Then Western Ukrainians who own UPA struggling with German soldiers, Soviets, and Poles. Then we have Polish version of Ukrainians as perpetrators in Volyn tragedy, which I think it was a horrible tragedy, and I'm very sorry for it happening. But yeah, there is a Polish version, and there is a Crimean Tatar version of deportation of Crimean Tatars, and them also being victims of Second World War and victims of the consequences of deportation, of them losing their homes, and now losing their homes twice. So I think as far as we keep all of this, at least 5 frames or 5 versions in the view, and there is a place like in public discussions, in the universities, for all of those versions and maybe other versions, then we are yeah, safe and we are not, lost in black and white survival mode.
But when you go to the street, let's say, to the kids, are they capable of holding this complexity? Is that a challenge that you see?
Yeah, that's, speaking about the kids, we need also to comprehend the psychological peculiarities of different ages. And teenage age is still the age when those parts of the brain which are responsible for analyzing consequences and reasons are still being in development. And this development starts at 12 and finishes, what the researchers now say, with 25. And of course, constant stress affects brain to develop as it should develop. So, like on all streets, I think if you catch a teenager, sometimes you will get some maximalist view on things. Yes, but I think that this appreciation of diversity is also now one of the ideas that we are trying to fight for and defeat in our country. We also try to. There is this context of diversity, and so there are also young teenagers for whom this context exists. Maybe for some of them, this context is connected simply to the language, because many of them were Russian-speaking, and now I know that many of them so consciously moved to Ukrainian language to speak Ukrainian, and for some of them, English and other languages also became their languages. And I think this multi-languageness can also be one of the ways when you create this diversity and start to appreciate it. Yeah, but it should be, of course, more in public spaces, in the media, and not only in education.
Yeah. Maybe just add something from my perspective. Of course, we have a lot of problems with extremism, different kinds of extremism, especially not only in Ukraine, the different point of view, but also in Poland now. And we still have, it's not the past, it's contemporary history, far right-wing extremism. And I experienced that personally when I was teaching about the Polish-Jewish relations during the war, just, I don't know, 8 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. And they called me Polakożerca, so Pole eater, on internet, and then Red Watch and different places. So, and just 8 years later, I'm now Zionist. so yeah, it's just.
I'm tolerant.
Yeah, so I'm very have a lot of I can do a lot of things from one side and the other. So the huge problem is extremism, and from the students' perspective, in the young people perspective, the extremism is a very easy answer for everything. How to deal with a contemporary world, the problems of the world, economical problem, the problem with relationships between people, because they need easy answer, like on social media, like on Instagram or TikTok, just without any deeper questions. So we have to deal with that, and maybe we are not fish among sharks now, but we are one fish among huge sea of other fishes with different, ideas. So we have to be the one who is the smartest one to get to those small minds and say that we should to be, I don't know, the human law, tolerant, open, that's it.
Are we doing a good job in it? That's like what I'm trying to ask myself as well. In this center, we work a lot with youth, but we do see a growing polarization of society, and I think this is something we all deal with. But, do we really manage to make a difference?
Yes, I think, but we should do it together. That's my answer. Because we as a species, as a human species, survive thanks to that we are hunting together and gathering the food. And now we are separate after COVID, after social media, and we should be together again and work for that. Just educate, I think, and do our work, but together, like here, cooperate with different people with different perspective, and be open, not like those extremism people. From different organizations, right and left, but to be open for discussion, arguments, and yeah, that's my answer. Pity answer, I know, but.
No, but I mean, when we talk about polarization, we see this, growing notion, especially among young people, as we said, that if you are not with us, you're against us. I mean, this is the immediate reaction. If you're not with us, you don't think like me, then probably you're against me and you are a threat. You are something to be, excluded or even eliminated. And we see more and more of that way of thinking, and we see it also in politics all around the world, and in Europe and in Israel and in other places. We see that very strongly. And I mean, how do you feel that you manage to deal with that polarization and this way of thinking in your work when you meet those young people, those students or people or teachers? What's your answer to that?
Well, I wouldn't be so tough on ourselves that we have to solve everything, and so even small steps I think are great. In our case, when we present those life stories of women, all of them are very different, and you can label them as anti-fascist, communists, Democrats, whatever. But at some point, this labeling does not work. Like in those stories, you can see how they managed. Okay, she was communist, but then she was persecuted, or she worked even for the party, Communist Party, after war. But then something happened. So it's like if that one person from workshop takes that complexity of one of those women, complexity of life of one of those women, then I'm like, good job. And
no, definitely. I mean, in Judaism we say that every person is the world. You change one person, you change the world. So I don't underestimate the work or the numbers, and I don't want to be hard on ourselves, but I do want to ask the hard questions. That is my job here. Well, you will ask us, and we will ask you. But I mean, yeah, we will. Anna, maybe you want, and then we can open.
Yeah,
also
I also
for questions.
Agree with my colleagues about the small steps and about cooperation, that we need to unite and cooperate with each other. But also, I must say that really it's impossible to be effective in the work with human dimension of memory when state propaganda is so strong and it forms a mono-narrative. So we are seeing now examples of it in the world. And the great work of organizations like Memorial, for example, in Russia, great work with digitization of archives, monumentalist work, but lost in this context of state narrative. So sometimes you feel like a Don Quixote.
Is there a way you think that in our work there is a way to deal with those state narratives, with those big narratives, strong ones, amplified by crisis situations? Something that you see from your daily work that manages to make a crack in that wall?
Now, as far as is allowed to do the work that we are doing, then we work.
You mean that's also a question mark there? Is it allowed to do the work we're doing?
Yeah, because in some countries you will be claimed a foreign agent or whoever, and in some cases sent from the country or be imprisoned or just not let to work with students or whatsoever. So there are examples not only on the north from us, but like in Hungary, our colleagues who, for example, work with LGBTIQ issues cannot do it in Hungarian schools anymore, even with very simple, very basic educational tools approved by European Commission and all of this.
Our experience from Poland is that we had an idea of this state law against defamation of Polish names, something like this, from 2013, something like this, or 2018. This IPN novelization. So it was a threat for historians dealing with a Polish-Jewish relation, history, but still we should do what we do. So if we cannot get the money from government for our research, we can ask FOZ, for example. to support our research and our ideas. If we cannot get some money from different, so just try again. So that's how, not we, because universities in Poland were quite safe spaced, even during the peace time. Autonomy of academia is, peace times, we call it peace times. Autonomy of academia is very great value in Poland, even for far right-wing government. But different institutions, for example, the Center for Holocaust Studies from Polish Academy of Science, had a huge problem with dealing with history. Barbara Engelking and other colleagues from that center, but they survived. So I think just do what we do.
You mentioned one word that we don't discuss enough, I think, and that's money. Yeah. It also was raised. I think generally in cultural work we tend to leave the money issues aside, and we will figure it out. We will get a little bit from here, a little bit from there, and we don't really think about it. But where does the money come from? Is it a problem for you? How do you find solutions? Well, it comes from FOZ as well, as we know. In some cases, that's also what brings us all together here. But obviously, these are just support for some projects, but we have day-to-day work. And how do you see this topic of financing memory work? Because I guess this could be a challenge sometimes, but it can also be an opportunity.
Sorry, again, just short answer. From my perspective, money is not a problem. Looking for money is a problem. Because there are so many institutions who can just give your money, but you have to be good enough to get those money. From FOZ, Thyssen Foundation, Memoria de la Shoah, I don't know, other different German, French, Israeli, American, Polish. So yeah, but my colleague, 100% of her time is looking for money for our projects. She's a PhD researcher in the Center for Jewish Studies, not accountant lady and fundraiser. Yeah, but yeah. So that's the problem. Yeah, that's the issue. Not maybe huge problem, but issue, and we have to get used to that. But yeah, we have to be very try hard enough and be consequent, looking for money every month. I'm applying for different grants every 2 months, to be honest. And they refuse it, I don't know, 12 grants yearly. So, yeah.
I will just use case from Slovakia. Like in Slovakia, situation is a little bit deteriorating in that way that, for example, organizations that deal with LGBT issues, they will not be funded by Slovak government or some funds and so on.
Please say a little more about this and the current situation in Slovakia. I think that's important for the context.
Yeah, so basically there are nowadays narratives we are going in the way as Hungary, and so this is problem, like if you deal with some topics that are not welcomed, then it seems that you will not be funded, as it happened in recent months. Non-organization that deals with that cannot really rely on funding from state. But also we have like 2 organizations from Slovakia. I think I haven't heard that someone is from them, that deal with memory work, and both of them are very much targeted by the government. So it's really, okay, they are targeted also because they have some personal connections to opposition or whatever, but still, the most known, I think, NGOs that deal with memory work, they are targeted by government, basically. So,
what does it mean targeted? It means cutting their budgets, or it means other things?
Yeah, like no support, but also like really attacks to media, personal attacks, and so on. So
like discrediting the people who stand at the head of the organizations and like persecuting them personally in the media. Yeah.
Yeah. So like discrediting their work and so on, and so. I don't know what I wanted to tell by this, but that I hope that the situation. I mean, so how I see this, that if we in Slovakia, if we continue to work as we did in the last years, we will be really. I mean, satisfied. So we are not even talking about improving things, but keeping it somehow, yeah, possible. Yeah, that's it, basically.
Yeah, so in Ukraine, to put it simply, we are having two types of funding now. So the first is the funding for survival and reconstruction. And so here is where I don't enter to competition, because it's rebuilding schools or educational losses with 8-year-olds learning to read and all of these things. But also with this so-called revival projects or reconstruction, rebuilding projects, which our international donors say we don't wait for the end of the war, we are doing it now. And really, we are receiving a lot of help and a lot of finances now also to repair our electro stations and all other support. And for the last 2 years, it's been a lot of funding for the youth and for creation of youth centers. But very interestingly, that for some donors and some applicants, walls and what's inside, it's more important. What's inside, I mean projector, 3D printer, or what other stuff, you know, that but what kids will do there? Actually, you know, teenagers, they just need a space, and not always it should be some fancy space. And what I've seen in those projects funded for the last 2 years on a large scale in Ukraine, they were really about walls and about 3D printers and other things. And we, as a small niche NGO, so we are about census, and so I'm trying to also to look for donors who are also about census and who would support such work in these youth centers. But the meanings, like what are you doing actually there? So in our fundraising sector, we had a huge loss with the Trump politics. Like an example, in January, one of US big fund, USAID, showed a competition about inclusion, LGBTIQ educational work and other anti-discrimination work, although they have very complicated application form and a lot of policies that you need to submit. Like we saw that it's like exactly the work we are doing, so we were trying to fill this application. And then the next day we are called by our former donors to take out their name of the project they already funded, because it's Democracy, Equality, Inclusion Day. The words that cannot be used by Trump policies. And you should also take it out from your former projects, and they are not supporting all of these projects now. And so in Ukraine, it was a huge part in the sector of working with census and anti-discrimination education, but also the work with the past. So our work was often supported by Germany, Federal Ministry or FLZ Foundation, and also by State Department. And now, unfortunately, also historical work with diversity is also considered day. And I don't think that in this year some competitions will appear in this. Yeah.
I hear from all of you that most of your funding comes from either governmental or foundations or donors. Did you have any other? Have you ever searched for money other ways? Have you had different attempts to create a sustainable model that is not based, because we see something is happening, right? We see that the changes of governments are hurting our funding. They hurt our daily work. We see that donations and just philanthropy is slowly dying, because donors who cared about the Holocaust, they are from an older generation and they're just simply dying. I mean, have you had other experiences in finding money in other places, or you know of those kind of examples?
we do. For example, in my association, we used to give tour guides and consultations, historical consultations for books, I don't know, comics, exhibitions, for money as a company. So that was our attempt to create a sustainable source of money, but it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Just usually I work for free, doing all those things, and all my money was spent for different things.
But you did mention when we discussed a situation in Łódź that was beneficial for the city and for memory. Maybe you can say something about that.
Yeah, in which there's a quite interesting situation that in 2004, where Łódź Ghetto was discovered again, history of Łódź Ghetto and history of survivors from the Łódź Ghetto, the city authorities discovered a whole story. They realized that this is a great source of not maybe direct money, but they try to commemorate all those events and places connected to the history of the ghetto to benefit. And it was official policy of the city, commemorate to benefit. So they spent millions of dollars and złotys to build a dialogue center, survivors park, Radegast Memorial, several plaques on walls dedicated to the Jewish history, not only for commemoration, but to get Israeli investors, Israeli business in Łódź, and Western business. And yeah, they succeed. So
it worked.
It worked, yeah, sure. So that's the idea. But from the city perspective, of course, the huge organization, the structure. But from the structure of NGO or university department, it's impossible to get that kind of idea and to afford.
Yeah. Maybe I will just add in this regard that only resources that we got, except of like money, mostly from international donors, is different pro bono, either expert consultations or pro bono nice premises for our activities, or schools or libraries who also try to, to implement our programs pro bono in their work. So that's also a resource, even if it is like without money. Yeah.
I think at this point would be a good time to open for questions and discussion with you. And yeah, I already see some hands in the air. Teresa?
Yes, I think it's a question mainly for Anna. Since you've been talking about how you reach out to the history of the Second World War in order to find strategies of survival, how to deal with trauma and so on. And I wonder if you also have any experiences or thoughts how also the strategies of memory work can be applied, like the ones that we've learned talking about the Holocaust and the Second World War, to memorialize the current war in Ukraine. Are there any attempts? Is there like a Rinkerbloom archive being created of, I don't know, Bucha or something like that? Is there any talk about creating a sort of Yad Vashem, I want to draw those parallels in Ukraine?
Yeah, I think Teresa, it's a very, very important question, and it's also one of my pains. Yeah, so as Adam said, so there are also people who want quick solutions, and also families who want quick solution and quick memorialization. But also there are scholars and so academic people and psychologists who are united together in the platform called Past and Present. Oksana Dolgopolova from Odessa is chairing it, and they are researching different examples of international memorialization, and they also try to organize public discussions on this point. And so now it is the process. It is the process. So an example can be Yagidne. Yagidne, it's a village in Chernihiv region, very close to Russian border, where they tortured in a school those people who lived in this village, like literally in the school basement. And those Russian soldiers, they had with them books about Buchenwald. So like, yeah. And so there was a national competition about different architectural projects, and one architectural company won this project, but then questions. Those companies, they had not visited this Yagidnet, did not talk to those people who live there. And of course, any talk is re-traumatization. And of course, maybe you need to avoid it, but at least to come to the place or at least to read about this place before you produce something that you need to sell for the competition is a question. So now I would say it's a process where different stakeholders are, participating. The voices of developers who want to win with their business on such a competition, yeah, they are strong. The voices of like academic people are existing, yes, and intellectuals in this way. Also, different voices of families also are there. So it's a process, and sometimes it's very quick. And what you can see in the cities now, it's more commemoration of past. Of soldiers who died at the battlefield. In all our cities, you probably have seen those like valleys, and they are with Ukrainian flags and photos and short information about this young man or young woman who died in this war about Ukraine. But publicly, actually, like I haven't seen yet in public spaces commemoration of civic victims. Yeah, and so it's a talk, and also like we are still in this process, and it's all very like vivid. But of course, I think that we need to at least study those examples from the past, and also very like speaking about documenting. There are several organizations who document war crimes in a different way. There are people from cinema fields. There are also historians. There are many lawyers who are doing it. Partially, this work actually was financed by American money. Like big, because they have a lot of money, so the big sector was funded by this, like work of truth hounds and other organizations. So they are now trying to diversify their resource and find other resources for that. Yeah.
Answer. Is there? Sorry, but it's very interesting. Yeah. Is there an idea to collect kind of, ego documents or, self-narrative, I don't know, memoirs from the war? And the same question is maybe for you, I don't know, from October 7 massacre. Is there any idea? Because I know there is a documentary movie made by IDF, this spokesman, but it's a movie, not ego documents. So.
There is a great project on collecting diaries. And for example, me, like I was following the fate of my colleague in Mariupol, and yeah, luckily, so he survived, and he is in Estonia, and he was also like intellectually, he was having a diary, and he took it with him, and it's photocopied, and it's on the website, Maxim Kosinchuk. So yeah, you can read it. So there is this project with diaries, definitely. On the website, there is also a War Childhood Museum, and I consult them as a psychologist, and I conduct mental health support groups for researchers of this museum. And they have the same concept, their filial of a museum in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Museum of War Childhood. Their concept is that they interview a child, I think from 4 years, like a simple structure of the interview, also some reassuring questions in this interview, and the child gives them an object, like a toy or drawing. One girl gave them a bun that she was given, like a real bun bulka that she was given in one of the shelters for IDPs, and then they had questions how to conserve it, how to conserve this artifact. So they called to National Institute of Biology, like, it's a real baked thing, and how to preserve it. And they are gonna, as for now, so they have a collection, and they have exhibitions from time to time, but on the exhibition you can see only like 12 stories or 15 stories.
Yeah, question there.
I'm sorry, I have not questions, maybe a little comment. Again, yes, and sorry about my English. I try to talk a little about situation from Ukraine, a general question for you and answer for colleagues. A little more information about documentation process from fact, yes, from crimes, international crimes, from facts, from situation, from people, history, people from occupation, yes, and more safe territory. Because I'm from Uzhhorod, it's West Ukraine. We have in Transcarpathian region. Colleagues, I need help. 30000 Yes, IDPs. Yes, it's many because in the region live only 1 million people. Yes, and we have these people IDPs in the. We prepare research. 16–17% is people is from Luhanska, Donetsk regions. It's not only occupied and restored territory. She not can come back. Yes, she stay live in this our territory. And we don't have money from Documentier, but we have partners from different organizations. We in 2023 every year we Documentier and help people Documentier fact from situation, from destroyed build, from sexual violence, different facts. Yes, but in 2024 from Ukraine we have very good option. From December 2024, from Ukrainian people, it's open international, I translate from Google, sorry, international register of damages from international crimes. It's very good option because you said, finish, more organizations not have money from connect, Documentier this fact. Now we have this option, help, we not the money from information campaign, but we talk from IDPs, we have many collective centers who have live IDPs in Transcarpathian regions. We have many 100 collective center we lives IDPs. We go in and talk about this option. In many people put application from this register because not only damages from property, also from moral damages and from moral damages from не можу сказати, Іванка, можна поможеш мені приложити. Вони можуть дати жадость о моральній компенсації, перед що були змушені їсти з тих територій. Сексуальне насилля так істо, тому що перед тим не всі були готові про це говорити, але дали там зміни до нашого закону, а дають зараз гарантії, а фінансову допомогу при жертві при сексуальну. А зараз много людей готові вже це з 2-3 роки говорити, що з ними було, а було те насилля. Он ж потім фініш. Прибачте, трошки на словенському. Словенський, I can speak also.
I forgot already. So people can apply for moral compensation, and that's when they experienced, for example, sexual harassment, or they have other traumas connected to the war.
Yes, because now she can put from state compensation, financial compensation. If many people start talk about this situation. Sorry about my English. Sorry. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
More questions. You have the microphone. You can be a thought, it can be an impression, it can be, yeah.
Maybe something in between comments or a question. Deals with the topic we discussed about the polarization and about means how to overcome the distinction between black and white, how to show the colorfulness of the world. And we know that the contemporary world is trying to diverge those two poles. We see it in the political results in traditional Western democracies like the United States, not just to mention these so-called failed democracies like Hungary or Slovakia. And we see very many people being like brainwashed by this information. In the case of our country, it is maybe 1/3 of the population.
Your country is which one? Slovakia.
Slovakia, yes. And unfortunately, it's almost impossible to target these people collectively because the portions of this information they receive on an everyday basis is so strong that this can't be just countered. It could only be countered from the strategic communication point of view of governments. So what I mean is only productive in the medium time range. In the long term, of course, they could be addressed by the strategic communication by the state. But in the medium time range, that is the time scope that our organizations usually deal with, is perhaps to target those people in the middle, the gray zone. Yeah, the gray zone that is often talked about, that is somehow possible to be shaped. And because often in the larger towns with their richer culture, you can find people who are on the more democratic side of the society, on the side that deals more with human rights and values of justice, whereas people who are somehow or often called as those who are defeated by the globalization, those people who often live in the countryside, in the rural areas, they are more often those ones who are more easily to become victims of disinformation and to move among those who counter democracy or who are supporters of those anti-democratic powers. So my question, mostly towards Adam, is whether your focus on the countryside, or maybe not countryside but maybe mid-sized towns, might be shaped by motivation to address those folks who are in the middle, in the gray zone.
Yes, you're right, it can, but from our perspective as a academic, institution, it's because from the perspective of in my activity in NGOs, in my association, it's quite different because we were found, to be honest, by people, activists from the local cities, and we were asked to help them with their projects because they were tired enough dealing with parish priests, burmistrz, so mayor of a city or leader of a community, and usually there are teachers, so they were absolutely helpless. So they asked us to help with the kind of administration, but also to get some money from different sources, usually from Jewish institution sources, to commemorate, for example, cemetery in Widawa and cemetery in Bełchatów. So yes, and our answer to your idea, I think, is that as an academic institution, we organize a series of lectures for students from Catholic seminar. I don't know how it's in English, to be honest. The school, high school for priests. We have 3 of that kind of seminar. We have 3 of that kind of seminar in Archbishop in Łódź. So we organize serious 3 lectures, 3 semesters for different groups of those people, because we know for sure that when they become a priest, they will go somewhere into countryside as a parish priests. So we teach them about Jewish similarities between Judaism and Christianity, about Holocaust, just brief history of Holocaust, 1 semester, and Polish-Jewish relations. So that was our idea to, and it works. I have a lot of friends from now priests from different cities around Łódź region on Facebook, we chat each other, and they are now aware of a rich history, Jewish history of their cities. Small cities, I don't know, the Kurowice, for example. So yeah, that was our idea. But now we have facing huge problem because there is no students there. Because they had a problem with students in seminars. They create the new seminar 30+, we call it, for people, you know, widowers, divorced people, men who won't become a priest, and it's possible now. I didn't know that in Poland. Interesting. Yeah, it is. And people from abroad, from South America, for example.
Coming to Poland.
Coming to Poland to become
priests.
Become
a Polish
on
priest.
the countryside.
Lovely.
So that's it.
Follow-up question.
Yeah.
How was it organized in a formal manner? Was it part of the official curriculum?
Yeah, official agreement between University of Łódź and HS seminar, because the former president of this seminar is a friend of my colleague from my center, and our Archbishop, Grzegorz Ryś, is our colleague, to be honest. We know each other. So we had, I don't know, private emails and phone numbers.
It was not only for those that wanted, it was part of the general educational process in that sense.
Students were forced to attend to our lectures, yeah. That's the answer.
Okay. So I think we will wrap up, and I would like to thank you all. Forcing education, this is what, no, I'm kidding. But really, thank you for the questions. Thank you for your cooperation. Thank you for the answers, the questions, and the mutual search in that last hour and a half. And I hope those topics are just the beginning and just an opening. So our idea was to open something, not to close it. And we hope those questions will keep echoing through the days of the seminar, whether it's in the workshops, whether it's in discussions between you over dinner or anything else. But take those questions with you to the next 3 days that we are here together. So thank you very much again, and we are now going to have dinner. Yay!